It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, and the cafe on Maple Street was unusually quiet. MIA sat by the large window, absent-mindedly tracing raindrops with her fingertip on the glass. She glanced at her phone, checking the time again. Sarah was late, which was unusual for her. Just as MIA was about to send a text, she heard the soft chime of the door. Turning, she saw Sarah rush in, her hair damp and her cheeks flushed from running through the drizzle. "You wouldn't believe the day I had," Sarah said, dropping her bag onto the chair and settling across from MIA. She let out a long sigh, trying to catch her breath. MIA smirked. "If it involves more drama than Mrs. Blake's biology class, then I want to hear everything." Sarah grinned, shaking her head. "Oh, it's bigger than that. But first, tell me why you asked to meet here today. You sounded weird on the phone this morning." Her tone softened, eyes searching MIA's face. "Everything okay?" MIA hesitated for a moment, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Did you get any strange messages last night?" Sarah frowned, pulling her phone from her coat pocket. "No, why? Did you?" MIA unlocked her phone and slid it across the table. "Read this." It popped up at midnight, and it wasn't from anyone I know. Sarah took the phone, eyebrows raised. On the screen was a short, cryptic message. "Go back to the old playground before midnight, or you'll regret it. A friend." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Is this a joke? Who would send that? MIA shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, Sarah. But I can't stop thinking about it." There was a pause. The only sound was the rain tapping against the glass. Sarah bit her lip and looked at MIA, a mix of excitement and worry in her eyes. "Do you want to go tonight?" MIA nodded, her eyes wide. "I think we have to. Just to find out who's behind this." Sarah smiled nervously. "All right, then. Tonight, after everyone's asleep, we'll meet at the old playground. Together." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their decision settling in. Neither of them knew that this message was only the beginning. The hours between the cafe meeting and midnight stretched endlessly for MIA. She tried to keep herself busy, first with homework, then with mindless scrolling on her phone, but every few minutes she'd glance at the clock, wondering how many seconds remained before everything could change. Outside, the rain had eased into a gentle drizzle, the sound almost comforting as she sat on her bed. Yet, deep down, a nervous energy tingled in her stomach. What if something went wrong tonight? What if this was all a prank, or something worse? Downstairs, she could hear the familiar sounds of her family's nightly routine. Her dad's muffled voice on a work call, her mother humming as she stacked dishes, her little brother watching cartoons a little too loudly. It occurred to MIA how ordinary everything felt compared to the mystery of the message burning in her pocket. Part of her wanted to forget it all and pretend nothing had happened, but she knew she wouldn't be able to sleep if she did. At 11:30, she slipped into her sneakers and grabbed her hoodie, pulling it up as she peeked out her bedroom door. The hallway was dark, and the only light came from under her parents' door. She listened for a while, waiting until the voices faded and the house settled into that unmistakable nighttime hush. Then, quietly, she eased open her window and climbed down onto the damp grass outside. The air was cool and wet as she hurried along Maple Street, every footstep echoing in her ears on the empty road. Her mind ran through everything they could face tonight: an elaborate prank, a strange stranger, maybe even a police patrol that would surely call their parents. But as she neared the old playground, her concerns faded into something else: memories. She and Sarah had spent so much of their childhood at this playground, racing for the swings, making up stories under the slide, carving their initials into the old oak tree near the fence. Now, it looked abandoned. The gate creaked in the breeze, and the swings swayed slowly, creaking with every gust. Sarah was already there, perched on the roundabout with her hood pulled tight around her face. She grinned when she saw MIA, but her eyes betrayed a hint of fear. "Took you long enough," Sarah whispered, hopping off the roundabout. "I was starting to think you'd bail. After dragging me into this, you think I'd let you face it alone?" MIA smiled, trying to sound more confident than she felt. So, what now? They stood together, the only two people in the world, it seemed, as silence grew around them. The only sounds were the muffled hum of traffic blocks away and the soft tapping of droplets on metal. MIA glanced at her phone. It was 3 minutes to midnight. Suddenly, Sarah's phone buzzed, the sound piercing the night. She jumped, nearly dropping it. The screen flashed with a private number. She hesitated only a second before answering, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. "Hello?" she asked. At first, only static crackled. Then, a voice came through, distorted and strange, almost robotic. "Look under the red bench. Don't be late." The call ended as abruptly as it had begun. MIA and Sarah looked at each other, fear flashing across both of their faces. Like clockwork, adrenaline took over. Hand in hand, they approached the old red bench, which was half hidden in the darkness at the far edge of the playground. It used to be a gathering place for the neighborhood kids, but now the paint was chipped and graffiti scrawled across the seat. MIA crouched down and ran her hand underneath. The wood was wet and cold, but after a moment she felt something smooth, a small, plastic box, taped to the underside. She peeled it off and sat on the bench beside Sarah. Inside, wrapped in a plastic bag, was an old photograph, a battered silver key, and a tightly folded piece of paper. Sarah held the photograph beneath her phone's flashlight. Her voice softened. "That's us. I don't even remember this photo being taken." MIA unfolded the note. 3 words, scrawled in shaky, unfamiliar handwriting. "The truth awaits." Sarah shivered, clinging to the key. "This is getting way too weird. Should we call someone? I mean, what if this is dangerous?" MIA shook her head. "Who would we call? The police aren't going to care about some creepy midnight scavenger hunt." They sat for a moment, each lost in thought. Then, suddenly, a twig snapped nearby. Both girls froze, turning slowly toward the sound. In the shadows beneath the trees, they thought they saw the faint outline of a person, someone watching, someone waiting. MIA's heart raced. Every instinct told her to run, yet she found she couldn't move. "Sarah, let's go," she whispered, grabbing her friend's arm. They hurried from the playground, adrenaline urging them onward. Only once they were half a block away did they dare to slow down, gasping for breath beneath a flickering street lamp. Sarah fished the key from her pocket and stared at it, hands shaking. A key. A photo. A message. "This isn't random, MIA. Someone went through a lot of trouble for this." MIA nodded, her mind racing through possibilities. Who could have done this? Someone from school? Someone from their past? But the worst question of all came unbidden to her mind. What if it was someone close to them, someone they trusted? They walked the rest of the way home in silence, clutching the box, the key, and the secrets they had just uncovered. Neither knew what the next day would bring, but both sensed that, whatever awaited them, none of their nights would ever feel ordinary again. MIA hardly slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, the images came back: the photograph, the shadow in the trees, the silver key glinting in her palm. When her alarm buzzed in the morning, she felt as though she hadn't rested at all. The world outside her window looked unchanged, but she couldn't shake the feeling that some unseen boundary had been crossed. Sarah texted her before breakfast, "Meet me outside before school? Bring everything." Wrapped in her thickest coat, MIA slipped the photograph, the key, and the note into her backpack. When she found Sarah waiting by the corner, she saw right away that her friend looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Sarah wasted no time. As soon as MIA joined her, she started speaking in a rushed whisper. "I was thinking all night. That key must open something. But what? A locker? A door? I tried it on everything in my house. Nothing." MIA hesitated. "It doesn't seem like it would be something at school, either. Too risky. You think, the playground? Or maybe the old community center?" Sarah shrugged. "I don't know. But there's something about that photo. Look." She pulled out her phone, zooming in on the background of the picture. See that? That's the storage shed by the fence. Remember? The one that was always locked. As the morning light sharpened around them, MIA peered closer. The shed, a battered, wooden structure at the edge of the playground, was indeed visible, its padlock glinting in the sun behind their younger selves. Sarah grinned, the first real smile since the night before. We should check it after school. If the key fits, maybe the answers are in there. MIA's nerves jangled the whole day. She couldn't concentrate in class, jumping every time her phone buzzed, half expecting another mysterious message. When the final bell rang, she all but bolted outside. Sarah was waiting, her backpack already slung over one shoulder. The playground was deserted, the air crisp and still. As they walked along the overgrown fence, every step seemed heavy with anticipation. At the far end, hidden behind a tangle of weeds and an old climbing frame, stood the shed, just like in the photo. The padlock was rusty and battered with age. Sarah handed MIA the key. "You do it," she whispered. MIA's hands were shaking as she slid the key into the lock. For a second, nothing happened. But then, with a click, the padlock snapped open. Sarah covered her mouth in shock. They pushed open the heavy door, its hinges squealing in protest. Dust filled the air, swirling in the slanting sunlight. Inside, it was cold and dark. Broken tools and faded sports equipment littered the floor, remnants of a time when the playground was still the center of the neighborhood. But at the back of the shed, on a small table, was another box. This one was metal, locked with a different, more modern padlock. On top was an envelope with their names written in blocky, careful handwriting: MIA and AMP, Sarah. Sarah looked at MIA, her expression a mix of excitement and dread. This is getting so weird. MIA took a deep breath and picked up the envelope. Inside was a second photograph, another shot of the playground, but this time, their younger selves stood near the shed, pointing at something in the grass. There was also a note. "You're getting closer. But some truths should have stayed buried. A friend." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed behind them. The girls spun around just as the door slammed shut. For a terrifying moment, they were plunged into darkness. MIA's heart pounded. She could hear Sarah's panicked breathing. Sarah fumbled with her phone, using the flashlight. "Who did that?" Her voice trembled. MIA pushed against the door, feeling the resistance. Someone had wedged something outside. They were locked in. Seconds felt like hours as they struggled, voices rising in panic. Finally, with a sharp push, the bottom edge gave way and they squeezed out, scraping their knees on the gravel but finally tumbling into the weak afternoon light. As they scrambled to their feet, Sarah looked toward the street and caught a glimpse of someone, just a figure, wearing a dark hoodie, standing on the sidewalk, watching. But as soon as MIA turned to look, the figure slipped away, vanishing into the lengthening shadows. Sarah grabbed MIA's arm. "We're being watched. I don't care what's in that box, MIA, maybe we shouldn't keep going." MIA stared at the envelope in her hand and the metal box at her feet. She knew what Sarah meant. But she also knew, deep down, they couldn't stop now. Not when the mystery seemed so tangled up in their own past. "We have to see this through," MIA whispered. "Tomorrow. We open the box." They exchanged a long, uncertain glance. The truth was closer than ever, but so was whoever, or whatever, was pulling the strings. The following day at school was a blur for both MIA and Sarah. Every glance at a darkened hallway, every laugh from classmates, every unexpected sound made them uneasy. They barely spoke through lunch, their attention fixed on the metal box hidden deep in Sarah's backpack. When the final bell rang, they practically sprinted out of the building, heading to Sarah's house, a place they figured they could have privacy and time to open the new clue. Sarah double-checked that her parents wouldn't be home till late, and they locked her bedroom door behind them, hearts pounding. Sarah set the box on her bed. It was heavier and colder than it looked, the padlock glinting in the afternoon sun. MIA ran her fingers over the numbers engraved on the lock, searching for any clue. "It's a combination," she muttered. "Do you think the numbers mean anything?" Sarah reached into her backpack for the two photographs, laying them out on the bed. Maybe there's something in these we missed. They studied every inch, checking dates, counting people in the background, noting the old graffiti and carvings on the benches. At last, Sarah pointed at something in the first photograph, near the base of the oak tree. Look, see the numbers scratched into the tree trunk? 1-9-8-7. MIA grinned as hope flickered. With trembling hands, she spun the numbers onto the lock style. 1-9-8-7. There was a soft click, and the lock snapped open. Inside the box, carefully stacked, were stacks of letters tied with string, each written in the same messy handwriting as the cryptic notes. On top, a small voice recorder with a sticky note. For the answers you seek, press play. MIA and Sarah looked at each other, uncertainty in their eyes. Sarah pressed the button. A crackle of static, then the same distorted voice from the calls and messages began. If you've found this, you're both braver than you know. I grew up in your shadow. You never knew I was there, watching, listening. There's something in your past, something that links you to me, and you need to remember. Go back to where it all started and dig beneath the tree. The message faded out into silence. The girls sat frozen, chills running down their arms. Sarah grabbed a letter from the bundle and opened it. Inside, a childish scrawl. We used to play here. You never noticed me, but I saw everything. 2009. Sarah looked at MIA, panic and realization dawning on her face. There was someone else with us, all those summers ago. Someone we never really remembered. MIA, what if this is someone from then? MIA nodded slowly, feeling a strange emptiness, as if a long-forgotten memory was struggling to break the surface. They knew what they had to do. Night was falling as they sneaked out and hurried to the playground for a third time. The wind had picked up, cold and insistent. At the base of the old oak tree, they used a stick to dig at the soft earth. After minutes of scraping, MIA's hand struck something. A tin box, rusted shut. Inside, protected by layers of plastic and paper, was a faded friendship bracelet, one Sarah recognized instantly. I made this for you in second grade. But I lost it, Sarah whispered. There was also another note, even shakier than the others. You forgot me. But I never forgot you. MIA and Sarah sat back on their heels, stunned and silent, as darkness fell around them and the truth began to uncoil in their minds. Whoever was behind the notes, they had shared their childhood, and somehow, MIA and Sarah had erased them from memory. The past, full of secrets and shadows, was finally catching up. Night had settled thick and quiet over the neighborhood when MIA and Sarah returned home, each carrying a heaviness they didn't fully understand. The friendship bracelet sat between them on MIA's desk, a silent testimony to the fact that someone, once a playmate, now a stranger, had been there all along. The letters, the photos, the voice recording, they hinted at a friendship that had somehow vanished from their memories. Why couldn't they remember? Who was this child who had watched them all those years ago? Sarah's hands trembled as she opened another letter from the bundle taken from the box. The handwriting had changed, growing older and more desperate with each year. You laughed together and left me alone. I tried to join, but no one answered when I called. Sarah looked at MIA. This is sad. MIA nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I don't even know who this is. How could we forget a whole person? Is that even possible? Sarah shook her head. Trauma does weird things to memory. But this person, they really were with us. And watching. They spent the next day questioning everyone they could, parents, siblings, even neighbors. No one seemed to remember another child playing with them back then. A few shrugged, some insisted it was just the two of them. It only added to the unease. That evening, MIA's mom poked her head into her room. You've been quiet. You all right, sweetheart? MIA hesitated. She wanted to ask, wanted to bring up the playground and the strange memories, but something held her back, a small, irrational fear that talking about it would make it more real. I'm just tired, she managed. But her mom lingered, looking thoughtful. You know, you and Sarah weren't always alone out there. There were other kids in the neighborhood once, more before everyone moved away. That sent a chill through MIA. Do you remember anyone else? Someone who was always around, maybe kind of quiet? Her mother frowned, as if searching through years of fog. I can't recall, honey. Maybe ask your dad. My memory's not what it used to be. Sarah came over again after dinner, their nerves frayed from this new layer of the mystery. Together, they examined the last letters. The final one was a confession, written only a few months ago. If you're reading this, maybe you'll finally notice me. I'll be waiting on Halloween. Come alone. Under the streetlight. Don't bring anyone else. Please let me see you, even just for a minute. Sarah's eyes widened. Halloween's only 3 days away. She glanced at MIA. Do we go? MIA hesitated, fear and guilt swirling in her stomach. They were being asked to face not just a stranger, but the parts of themselves they had forgotten, or chosen to forget. But deep down, MIA knew the answer already. We have to, she said. We owe them that much. So, for the next 3 days, the friendship bracelet never left MIA's wrist, and the girls waited for Halloween night, with hope, fear, and the need for answers burning inside. Halloween in their neighborhood had always been a big deal. Every house was lit up with pumpkin lanterns, fake cobwebs, and grinning skeletons lurking in the bushes. Kids in wild costumes shuffled down the sidewalks, their laughter echoing in the chilly night as they dashed from porch to porch for candy. Outside, a family had set up a projector for a spooky movie. Another yard was filled with glowing tombstones and fog machines. But for MIA and Sarah, the festive energy felt distant. They barely noticed the parade of vampires and superheroes. All that mattered was the note, the friendship bracelet, and the promise they had made. As the hour grew later and the crowds thinned, the girls slipped away from their group. They walked together, barely speaking, clutching their coats against the cold. The streetlight mentioned in the letter was at the edge of the old playground, where the path dipped into shadows. MIA kept glancing at her wrist, the faded bracelet feeling heavier than anything she'd ever worn. Sarah's face was pale with nerves. Finally, they reached the streetlight. It flickered overhead, casting strange shadows. The playground was deserted now, silent except for the wind rattling the slide. MIA glanced at Sarah. Are you ready? Sarah nodded, though her hand was shaking. They waited. Minutes passed. The last of the trick-or-treaters wandered away. Somewhere distant, laughter faded. Under the streetlight, time felt as though it barely moved. Then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. It was a girl around their age, wearing a homemade mask painted like a cat, something oddly familiar, though MIA couldn't quite place it. She hovered at the edge of the light, half in shadow. Sarah stepped forward. Are you the one who's been writing to us? The girl hesitated, then nodded. MIA's voice was gentle. What's your name? For a long moment, the girl didn't answer. Finally, she removed the mask. Her face was pale and her eyes shining with tears. My name is Lily. We used to be friends. But I was always the one left out. 1,000 memories seemed to flicker at once, flashes of summer afternoons, bursts of laughter, a third shadow lingering just out of focus. MIA and Sarah suddenly remembered a soft voice always trying to join in, a face hidden at the back of group photos, a friendship bracelet made but never given. Lily looked down. When my family moved away, you forgot me. I tried to reach out, but the notes were all I could do. I just wanted you to remember. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Lily. We were kids, we didn't realize. I know, Lily whispered. But I needed you to see me. Just once more. They stood together in the orange glow of the streetlight, the silence full of all the things left unsaid. MIA slipped the bracelet from her wrist and held it out. This was always yours. Maybe we can start over. Lily smiled slowly, and for the first time that night, she stepped into the light. As the clock struck midnight and the last of Halloween faded, 3 old friends stood together at the edge of the playground, finally ready to remember, and maybe to begin again. Standing beneath the streetlight, all three girls felt suspended between past and present. The weight that Mia and Sarah had carried for days began to shift. The strange emptiness in their memories was slowly being filled in with the face, the voice, the laughter of Lily. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The air was cold, but there was warmth in the way Lily held the old friendship bracelet, running her fingers along the frayed threads. Mia felt tears prick her eyes. "I can't believe we forgot you. After all that time, I really thought it was just always Sarah and me, but now I remember hiding in the sandbox, building forts, your daisy chain crowns." Sarah stepped closer. "We weren't just a duo, we were a team. I'm so sorry, Lily. It hurts to think we made you feel invisible." Lily looked down and shrugged. There was pain in her voice, but also relief. "You were both always so close. Sometimes I thought if I disappeared, no one would notice. That's why I left that bracelet. I wanted you to remember me. When my family left town, I promised myself someday I'd find you again, even if it was just once." For the first time, Sarah reached for Lily's hand. "You found us. And I promise, we won't forget again. If you want, we can be friends, really friends, this time." Lily nodded, a hesitant but genuine smile breaking through. "I'd really like that." They all sat together on the edge of the empty playground, trading stories about those forgotten summers, piecing together old games and adventures that they had never fully understood or shared with anyone else. The embarrassment, guilt, even the anger, it all faded a little as they laughed and remembered together. After a while, Lily spoke again, her voice steadier. "I was angry. But I realize now, kids don't always know how their actions hurt others. I'm glad I found my courage to reach out, even if it was in a weird, mysterious way." They all laughed, the tension evaporating into the crisp night air. As the hours ticked by, the girls realized something important. The real answer to the mystery wasn't just in solving notes or finding boxes. It was in learning to face mistakes, to listen to others, and to heal old wounds, together. Soon, it was time to part ways. Before Lily left, she looked at Mia and Sarah. "One more thing, I'm staying in town now. Maybe, if you want, we could meet at the playground sometimes. Like old times." Mia and Sarah grinned. "Absolutely," Mia said. "You'll never have to remind us again." With that, Lily melted into the darkness, not as a shadow or a secret, but as a friend finally seen. Mia and Sarah walked home slowly, hearts lighter than they'd been in weeks. As they reached their street, Sarah whispered, "Ready for a new chapter?" Mia nodded, smiling into the night. More than ever. Days passed, and the strangeness of those October nights turned into something softer, more hopeful. Mia and Sarah found themselves thinking about Lily constantly, not with confusion or guilt anymore, but with excitement. The boundaries of their world had shifted, and what was once an unsettling mystery had become a promise of friendship, forgiveness, and new memories to make. They saw Lily again that weekend, this time in broad daylight. The three of them met at the playground, which looked different in the sunshine, less ominous, more like the stage for happy stories. While the playground had been the place where secrets were hidden, now it became the place where those secrets could be shared, understood, and finally released. As they sat together on the swings, they talked about everything: their favorite memories, the hard parts of growing up, the dreams they had for high school and beyond. Lily told stories about the towns she'd lived in after moving away, and Sarah admitted how much she envied Mia's courage, even when she was scared herself. Mia confessed that she had always hated sleeping alone after thunderstorms, until one summer when a friend, Lily, had stayed by her side without her really noticing. They made a pact, sealed with the friendship bracelet, to never let time or distance erase their bond again. They agreed to look out for each other, to notice the quieter voices, and to always make room for one more around their circle. That afternoon, they took a group photo at the same spot where the mysterious old picture had been taken years before. This time, they all stood close together, arms around each other, grinning wide and unafraid. As the sun set behind the trees, painting the sky in golden orange streaks, MIA looked at her friends and realized what had changed. The past, with all its misunderstandings and shadows, would always be part of them. But the future was something they could shape, together, and in the open. Walking home, MIA glanced back at the playground and felt a quiet joy settle in her chest. The truth was no longer something to fear. It was a reminder that people can make mistakes, forget, and lose their way, and still find forgiveness, belonging, and new beginnings.